Well, I'm so excited to welcome Daddy Streets on the show today. My first ever interview with the daddy of Code South. And I'm so happy to have you here. And I wish you could be in the studio live, but we're doing a pre-record, aren't we, Darren?
We're doing a pre-record, and thanks for having me on. Do you know what I mean? Thank you.
Thank you for having me on. I'm like living the dream right now. So what if for those of you who don't know, Darren is that what I should call you, Darren, or would you like to be called Daddy Streets first of all?
Daddy Streets.
Daddy
Daddy,
Streets.
yeah, Daddy Streets.
Daddy
My
Streets.
government name, Daddy Streets.
Okay. So Daddy Streets is the development manager of the radio station. So if you want to get yourself a spot, you want to find this guy and ask him, man.
Well, to be fair, it's more about it's not just about people coming forward and getting spots. It's about looking out for the right talent. Some people I sort of had chats to and approached. They were like, "How did you know about me?" And I said, "Because I'll turn up in the dance and I'll be listening at the back, and no one will see me come in. I'll be keeping my ear to the ground. I'll be seeing what movements made, and I don't just mean movements on social media. I mean like people who actually have talent in terms of being able to play, select records, people that have got passion. Because with Code South, especially, it's about the passion for the music. If you're not the best DJ in the world, it's not the worst. You know, we can help, we can train you, we can develop you. Hence my job title. But it's more about what you bring to the table in terms of your passion and your love for the music. And that comes through when you do your show, when you play your set, even when you're just talking about music, you see people eyes light up and they get all animated and stuff. And that's what we look for. So that's kind of what I do. As well
Yes.
as, you know,
I hear that. I hear that. That's beautiful. And I'm so happy to have this show because I have a passion. And my passion is about freeing the voice and express yourself. So what I've noticed in this life, in this world that I live in, is that most people are holding back from their true passion or the things that they really believe or saying how they really feel about stuff or showing their quirks and interesting quirky bits or even I'm a singer and even daring to sing. People are scared to sing even though that they would love to because they just keep stum. So there's so many ways people keep stum. They keep their mouth shut and they don't express themselves. So I'm passionate about people expressing themselves. And what do you say to that, Daddy?
I say, do you know what? You're right. So many people have got so much going on. I look at it as a bit cliched, like an iceberg. So there's a little lump on the surface and there's a big whole load of something going on underneath. And no one knows if people are paddling away and they're swimming or they're doing the breaststroke, the front crawl, whatever. No one knows what's going on underneath. And some of the ways that people express themselves, especially what we do, is through music. And being placed in this role, you sort of have to start understanding people's motivations and why they're a certain way and what might not be right that time and things like that. And you become more aware that people are, you know, there's that old saying, hold your light under a bushel, that people are sort of holding back on what they can do for fear that it might not be accepted, fear it might be rejected, fear it might not be that great, fear some horrible troll on social media might go, hey, hey, hey. And that's awful. Because if you go through life like that, you're just holding it all up in a big ball. And then, you know, 5 years down the line, you might see them on TV doing something they shouldn't be doing. So,
Yes, and also like there's also fear of outshining people, fear of being. I remember like in my youth when I was a model, I got spotted to be a model, or when I signed to record, and they will go to me like, you know, remember me. Don't get up your own ass when you're like really well known and really famous. You know, remember me. And it's like there is something in our culture in this country as well, and possibly other places too, that you mustn't shine too bright because you might outshine the other. So some people are actually just scared of how amazing they are or could be. What do you think of that?
I think you're probably right. One of the things I discussed with my cousin is about being prepared to ask for what you're worth at work. And some
Mm.
people are not willing to say, I want this much, or listen, you should value me because this is what I bring to the table. And I don't know if that's a process that begins at school or through your childhood or something else like that. But some people have that inherently built into them. I was quite lucky. My mum was stunats, right? So we kind of had to fend for ourselves from a very early age. All kinds of craziness. My sisters writing a book about it right now, which will hopefully be published and turned into a TV show that's so funny because it's true life, dark Irish, Italian craziness going on. But the point is, one of the best things that I could say that I was brought up was to never ever accept the word no. Never ever anyone outshine you. Do your thing. Don't worry about other people because no one else is really going to help you along the way. Some people might, but generally they don't. And when you learn that at a very young age, when you're growing up in the blocks, it forms your sort of way of thinking about, I want this, I'm going to go for this. I want that, I'm going to go for that. I'm going to jump through all these hoops until I get exactly what I want. And then if that's what I still want, I'm going to keep going. And I've met a lot of people throughout life and they haven't got that motivation. They've got the passion. And I think perhaps it ties into what you said about not wanting to outshine other people for fear. And I think we should all be able to shine our lights and shine our gifts and do whatever it is that is inside of us and get it out there.
I
It doesn't
hear,
matter.
I hear you. That's so beautiful that you got encouraged to never say no and keep driving forward, because a lot of people will give up on the first instance. And often with the Free Your True Voice experience that I have, is like someone was told, oh, you can't sing, or you talk too much, or, you know, and then at that point they just stop. So something often has happened with my clients that I meet and the people I talk to, that somebody says something and done something to hold them back. And at that point, they've taken no for the answer and not dared to push forward. So it's lovely to hear that you haven't had that experience. Well done.
Oh, I think that when I talked to a lot of my friends when we were growing up, and a lot of people I still associate with now in the DJ community, people from various different backgrounds, West Indian families, Guyanese families, Ghanaian family, Nigerian families, Irish, Italian immigrant families, and so on and so on. The general consensus is that our parents would berate us if we didn't reach our potential. So
Wow.
you know what, we've got to do that. We've got to do the best that we can. And
Wow.
and listen, no one's going to help you. The government ain't going to help you.
Yeah.
They're just going to teach you what you need to learn. You need to get out there and you need to do it for you, because no one's going to do anything for you. And the reason this is so valid right now, especially with the times we're living in, is you find a lot of people aren't working. They've sort of had a different way of thinking, especially the younger generation now. And my partner, she runs a nursery school, and she finds it really hard to get staff because the staff, they don't want to work. They've realized actually there is another way of life. I don't have to be on this treadmill working to survive to work. And it's quite nice to see that sort of cyclical thing coming back. So I think you might find the next generation of people will not accept the whole don't outshine people, don't engage your passions, because they haven't got the constraints that a lot of people our generation had. So I'm hoping as people move forward, they realize, do you know what, actually, I've got this amazing thing inside me and I need to get it out. And I don't care about other people. I'm going to do it for me.
Yes. But, you know, interesting, what I notice with the ones who want to get that amazing thing out, the caring about other people is in a different context. They care about other people. And so a lot of people have something to give. And but it's just they're not caring about people stopping them, their own opinions that are going to block them from doing what they want to do. I love the idea of us daring to find what is our unique gift in the world, and I believe every single person has that. And yeah, so by finding a way to tune into what is your true voice, what is your special gift, it takes a little bit of stepping out of what's normal. Like basically, you know, you're taking a risk if you're bringing something to the party that is not the same as what everyone else is doing. And I think that's the difficulty, I think, for some people. And obviously with the music, we're looking for people on this show, right, who are going to think outside the box, widen the box. Yeah.
We're looking for people who don't worry about the box.
Don't worry about the box.
Get the box. You know, when you're growing up, you sort of say, oh, you a sheep, or you're a follower, or you wolf, or you this, or that, and everyone gets assigned a label. And we're quick to label people with various different bits and pieces. Co-South's a broad church, you know, talking about our day-to-day experience. we have people from all different backgrounds, different faiths, different creeds, different colors, different beliefs, different gender pronouns. It doesn't matter. The only thing that matters is we're looking for people who are unique, who set their own path. They don't worry about the box. And that passion, that shines through. But sometimes we do have to encourage it to come through. But it's lovely when you see the full potential reach and you're like, do you know what? My ears are still pretty good. I knew that was gonna work. I knew that person there was gonna be a great asset to the station. And it's kind of weird because where you're empowering people to use their voice, we're empowering people to, shine. And then by you lifting people up, they rise themselves up and everybody grows. And it's just a
That's right. And the voice, to me, one of the things that I'm going to be talking about more in the show is the voice is not necessarily out of your mouth. Your voice is still like, if you made someone a mixtape like back in the day, or a playlist, I guess you do it these days, right? Then that is your voice. It's the flavor of your sound, right? And then there's things like, I always talk about Van Gogh, the painter. His voice was his painting style. Like, and like one of the things that people are going to discover when they listen to my show is that I listen to a lot of instrumental music. I think probably half my playlist is going to be like instrumental, because you can have a voice that doesn't have words. You can play an instrument and that be your voice. So I think that's the thing. It's just like, what are people going to hear from you? What are they going to identify you as? It's like, how are you going to make yourself heard, seen, felt in the world, and there's so many ways to do that.
I think that's a really important thing of doing. Talking back and touching back to what you said about instrumentals, Courtney Pine didn't say much, but he played some fantastic music. If you think about that, Stan Tracy doesn't talk; they just play. And even with some of the old rock records, they'd like, think about The Chain by Fleetwood Mac. The most famous part is the middle of it, the middle of it where they're just playing the guitars and building up. It's not about the words. That's the bit that people latch onto. That might be because Top Gear used it for a theme tune or whatever. But I think it's more about, if you go back in time and you listen to records, the recording would still be running and the musicians would just be like going off key. And if you reflect that in today's music, with dance music especially, when you're putting together a tune, you have all these ideas. It's like a gusto, or one of those ready-made dinner packets, and they give you all the herbs and spices and you just put the meat in the pot. When you're making a tune, it's exactly the same. You chop up your ingredients, you put them in your pot, and then when you made the tune, you've got loads of stuff left over. So at the end of the tune, I was talking about this the other day with someone, you have all the goodness that you couldn't fit in the beginning of the tune. And that's the same equivalent as back in the day when the tape would be running and Led Zeppelin would go off key for like 7 minutes and play some crazy drum solo with John Bonham and Jimmy Page. Or the Chili's in their original works would do something. Or if you go back to house music, there'd be like a little riff and a breakdown and it would be a second section. So I totally know what you mean. I
love that idea of the cooking and whatever's left over on the side.
That's it.
I love that. I mean, when it comes to guitar solos, like I love a guitar solo. It's like, what's that song? While My Guitar Gently Weeps. I mean, it's not my favorite solo, but in terms of like, you can say so much. I mean, for me as a vocalist, I have issues sometimes because when it comes to a jam or jam session, I sometimes just want to be an instrument rather than using words, which narrows down the feeling of what somebody could pick up from what I'm delivering. But anyway, right, we're going to keep this fairly short, and I want to ask you, what is the voice of Code South?
Oh wow, the voice of Code South is our DJs. It's definitely our DJs. It's what they bring and how the music they play affects other people. During lockdown, we were still on. A lot of stations weren't, and we were doing remote streaming, all sorts of other stuff under the previous management. And one of the great things about that was people were able to find their voice through the music, through their expression, and people who were at home who were having a difficult time were able to just have that little bit of light, because music doesn't care if you're happy, if you're sad, if you're having a good day or a bad day. Music is always there for you. And for some people, it was really important that they had that bit. So I think definitely our DJs is the voice of Code South. What they
Yeah,
bring, the music.
yeah. Musical therapy, huh? For us
Yeah.
all. Yeah, right. Totally. And then obviously, because it's a dance show, there's the movement. That's important too, right? For people to have the opportunity to move. My sense, having tuned into the station more since I was getting it ready to play, is that you know, you're bringing the flavor. There's a Britishness. There's a southern. There's, even though not all of your DJs are from the south, right? But there's something very British as well about bringing what we bring here. Do you think there's a bit of a South Coast feel as well?
Do you know what? Coming from Hackney originally and stepping into the station that had been well established for a long time. I mean, I played on it years ago, and I played on different incarnations of it. And then I think over time, we haven't Londified it, or what you want to call it. I remember when I lived in Lewis, people who were from outside, they'd be called down from London, like down from London people. I was like, well, that's me.
DFL. Yeah.
That's me. I'm a DFO.
I'm a DFL
For
and an
such a long time.
OFP over from Brighton. Yeah.
That's it. I've been in this area for such a long time now. It doesn't really count. But do you know what? I think that realistically, we represent the cutting edge, and we also fuse that with that sweet soul, funk, reggae, lovers rock roots, minimal techno from back in the day. So depending on who you're listening to, you'll either get some real sort of Brighton Hove focus type thing, or you'll get a proper urban explosion. A lot of the DJs originally come from London. They moved down and they settled in this part of the world because they like the sea, like my mum probably. And then they've still got their roots and they bring that, you know. And a lot of the DJs we've got coming through right now from uni, they're not from Brighton. They're from outside. You've got people from all parts of the country. And it's a nice little melting pot. Again, back to that cooking pot. It's a hot like cooking pot. It's in you go and it fuses up and you get that unique blend. And that's why I hope Code South is different from everyone else. I hope our voice is unique.
That's the thing, you know, sometimes when people listen to a voice singer and they say, was that you, Alison? And they're not quite right. And you know, I have got a distinctive voice, but there are times when it sounds like others. And both of those things are fine, you know, to be unique and to be similar. Because that's also the tribal thing, to have a similarity, that's all okay as well. And it's one thing I want to go back to from what you were talking about earlier, and you were saying about all the different backgrounds of all the people you grew up with, and they all were like non-English. And I think that that was in relation to when you were speaking about just fighting for it and just going for it and just extending yourself. And I wonder if like the free that experience of not daring to and stepping back and knowing your place and is a British cultural thing more than the other races that you described. You talked Irish, African, you talked Caribbean, you talked Italian, you mentioned all sorts. But I just wonder, like, I feel that there is something in the British, it's like, know your place. And what do you think about that?
I think with regards to that, especially if you look at what's happening right now with the monarchy and all these other things, and people are asking questions. They're asking questions about reparations. They're asking questions about colonialism and all these sorts of things. And people are a lot more astute than they were because these things aren't really taught in school. Background and history isn't really taught. It's like the First World War, the Second World War. And if you go to a really good school, you do other bits and pieces. Irish history wasn't taught in school. Obviously, Irish in me, so I understand that back in the day, there was no blacks, no dogs, no Irish. That was it. And that history cannot change that, whitewash that, blackwash that, brownwash that, whatever you want to call it. That is there. That is a statistic fact. And if you look at a lot of stuff that happens in the country at the moment and protest movement and things like that, I think there's a lot of stuff bubbling under the surface. And let's just say my mum was taught you have to, well, she was one of 9. So she had it pretty tough to make sure she got through, you know, and then that's passed down to me. And when I have children, that will pass down to them and so on and so on and so on. And I think it goes all the way back to your grandfather, your grandmother, whoever, and how they sort of learned, and it passes down. a lot of the people I know are in that situation that you sort of said, that, you know, well, you know, it's, we sort of stay in our little box, in our lane, whatever. But then most of the people I know are like, you know what, I don't care about the lane. That's not necessarily a good thing in some people's respects, but it's what they've been brought up to learn, and it's who they are and what they do. And some of them are very successful, and some of them are in a place you don't really want to go. And it's a really fine line between the two. But I think that as much as my mum is still nuts, the reason I was able to come on and do what I did in business and in music and everything else is because I was like, you know what, I want to do that. I'm going to crack. I wasn't like, I want to be famous. I want to be this. I want to be, no, I just want to do it because I went raving when I was 14.
Me too.
Loved it. I loved it. Hastings Pier all night raving. That was us. My mum, we moved to Hastings. She loved the sea. Off we go. Crack on. And as it turned out, that was the center of the raving jungle universe. So I knew everyone, and it was just love. And before that, Hastings was very demographically not multicultural. Let's put it that way. And then jungle exploded, and suddenly people from all different backgrounds were mixing and having a vibe and having a party. And that's like my origins. I don't care where anyone has been or has done or whatever. I just see people as they are, and that passion. And especially when I put my, Code South radio hat on, that's what I'm looking for. And I think what you're doing to help people overcome those self-inflicted hurdles. Michael Jordan used to say the biggest challenge to myself is me. I had to fail thousands of times so I could win once. And people think success is an easy thing overnight. Oh, that person did this and that person did that. And oh my God, how did they get famous? Well, do you know what? Sometimes people literally get famous overnight, but most people have been working at it for years in the background.
Yes. And when you talk about it, like sometimes people, my experience is like most people have got some sort of background. Some people has affected, somebody in their past has affected their confidence, but the only one who's going to pick themselves up is themselves. And also when you talk about your voice and the voice that you talk to yourself with, the voice should be like encouraging, basically kind. And that's the other thing we have to do is we have to listen out to how we're talking to ourselves, big ourselves up and cheer ourselves on. And that's where no one's going to do it for you like you can do it for you. It's so true. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. I was going to the early drum and bass in London. I was in London when it was happening. There was one in Shaftesbury Avenue that used to happen, and there was one in
Thursday nights.
Hoxton Square. I can't remember what they were called.
Thursday nights, Bar Rumba.
Yeah, Bar Rumba, that was it. Yeah. I love
the blue note on the corner.
In fact, drum and bass was the thing that helped me understand the healing power of sound, because I would stand, there was one in Hoxton Square, I don't know what that one was, but I used to stand in front of the speakers and I could feel the beats massaging me. And so when I just stand there and I'd sort of move my back around a little bit and all my muscles so that I could get, because if you've ever seen a glass of water and how it ripples with sound waves, well, we're so made up of water. Every cell is made of water, so we can give ourselves an internal massage with the tones, with the sounds. So yeah, turn on the speakers and get that, or use your voice, which is what I'm all about. So that's brilliant. I've loved talking to you. I can talk to you all day, but I know we're going to get on with some music and stuff. So I want to know what sort of music would you like me to play? What sort of tune would you like me to play next?
Do you know what? I'm all about the bass. I'm a bass junkie. So something with plenty of bass and a little bit of flavor, a little bit of soul, something that gets you here, because that's what it's about for me. That's my roots. Do you know what I mean?
I love the 70s for that. I love the 70s for that. I found a tune the other day, and I'm hoping that this is going to be the one. But Charles Wright and the Watts 103rd Street Band, right? I was listening to that, because Express Yourself is a track, obviously you're going to hear it on the show today, but there's a lovely track on there that had amazing bass, because 70s was the time for the bassists to do a lot. So I'm going to play that.
That sounds good to me. All right, thanks for having me on your show. Bless.
Thanks for doing the show.
Anyone who's listening, if, Code South is a broad church, we're always looking for the right people. So drop us an email to codesouth@hotmail.co.uk. Someone will get back in touch, even if it's to say, sorry, you're not quite right now. and give you a bit of feedback. And you never know, come down to one of our live nights, chat to the team, come and join our family.
Yes, now let's get funky. All right. Thank you for guesting with us, Darren, Daddy Streets, DJ, and development manager on Code South FM.